And a big-time fight coming up this weekend at lightweight. We have the return of the Georgian Viking, Guram Kutateladze. He's going to be taking on the former M1 Global lightweight champ in Damir Ismagulov. And if you have friends that are non-MMA fans, you want to turn them on to something, you want to get them on early, it's one of these types of fights. I mean, you look at it for Guram Kutateladze. His last time out, he hit as more than a 2-1 underdog, taking on one half of next weekend's main event in Mateusz Gamrot. Now, for Guram, he's been off since that fight. That fight was in October of 2020. He had a big-time knee injury that required surgery. He had a rib injury that required a little bit of time away. And listen, it has been a long time since we've seen Guram in the octagon. And for Mateusz Gamrot, he went out and beat Scott Holtzman, beat Jeremy Stevens, and then his last time out, beat Carlos Diego Ferreira. Now he's taking on Arman Tsarukyan. The world is his oyster. For Guram, he's been in training videos with Ilya Topuria and Khamzat Chimaev, and he's kind of been a bit of a hype man for 2 years, but we haven't seen him inside the cage. And for Damir Ismagulov, his last time out, he didn't look like the absolute world beater that we've seen in the UFC. Multiple 10-8s across all of his fights. He debuted against Alex Georges, and that was the last time anybody ever saw Alex Georges. He beat Joel Alvarez and looked amazing in that fight. He beat Thiago Moises and looked really, really good in that fight. But against Rafael Alves, he wins that fight, and you could give it to him 30-27, but he got dropped in the first 11 seconds of that one, and then he's able to rally back, utilize his wrestling, and that's a huge strong suit of Damir Ismagulov. He's a master of sport in martial arts, which is very interesting, but the best part for Damir is so well-rounded, and when he needs to wrestle, he can wrestle. When he needs to strike, he can strike. He took most of this camp at Tiger Muay Thai. A little bit of it, rounds it out at American Top Team. He's been at ATT before. He's been at Tiger Muay Thai before. Kind of similar to another guy that's been at both of those gyms, Movsar Evloev, that you've seen very recently inside of the cage. But, Matt, I look at this fight as Damir, very well-rounded, but even his last fight against Alves, he tired in the third round, and it was odd. It was really, really something that surprised me. For Guram Kutateladze, though, so many question marks out there because when he gets taken down off his back, he's wild with his submissions. Will take guys down on occasion that we had seen in the regional tape study, but when he strikes, boy, is this guy a lot of fun.
Everything he lets go, it's like it's wound up with 11 rubber bands, and then he just lets it fire. Like, there's so much force behind everything that Kutateladze throws. It's kind of ridiculous. People forget, like, he dropped Gamrot multiple times in their fight. Now,
they credited him with one in the second.
Hurt him multiple times, though. I think that's fair to say. So, for Kutateladze, we know how good he is on the feet, and it will be interesting because this matchup is kind of similar to his first matchup that he had in the UFC. Ismagulov, he's almost like 2022's version of what 2019's Mateusz Gamrot was. He's a very well-rounded fighter. What I do like about Damir Ismagulov, and it's kind of like what you had said earlier, when the going gets tough, he can get tough too. And I think that's really important. That's almost like the final piece that we find out about a lot of these fighters. Because if you're really good on your way up the rankings, normally you're blowing the doors off everybody. The fights aren't that difficult. You're a big favorite in all your matchups. And then you finally have that one really tough fight against a guy whose style just doesn't mesh well with yours. Like, if you go back to Jamal Emmers versus Pat Sabatini, Emmers cracks him, hurts him. You think it's going to go bad for Sabatini, but Pat becomes the fighter that he is today. He gets through that hard spot and he ends up winning by submission. Now we all realize how good he is. I put a lot of stock into Ismagulov's ability to come back after getting hurt by Alves, to being able to out-grapple him. Yes, he did tire in the end of that fight, but that was a grueling fight between those guys. So, I think in a fight against Kutateladze, who might not have the same aggression behind everything he throws, although he might have more power behind it, I don't worry as much about Ismagulov's gas tank, because with Alves, he's constantly forcing the clash all the time. He's always going to move forward. He's going to make you do something at all points. Whereas with Guram, he'll wait a little bit more. He'll try to set things up a little bit, almost in like a Uriah Hall manner. I think that's a fair comp for him, at least on the feet, because he'll kind of pause, he'll wait, then he'll throw a crazy big strike, and it'll land with very high accuracy. And that's what I like about Guram. He's almost like Joey Votto in his prime. When he swings, there's not a lot of misses, and that's what you appreciate out of him. He has very high accuracy with his strikes, although he is someone who can get carried away from time to time, throwing some, crazy spinning back kicks and whatnot.
Yeah, and you look at it for Guram, his last time out was a fight of the night against Gamrot. Everybody thinks so highly of Gamrot at this juncture. And Gamrot was able to go 5 of 16 on his takedown attempts. That was a big thing. You look at it, it's a win for Kutateladze. I thought Gamrot won the first round, won the third round, Guram won the second round. But if you look at it, the difference...
Guram had won, to be fair.
The difference in the takedowns, though, from Gamrot to a guy like Ismagulov, Gamrot's going for wild stuff. He's going for ankle picks. That was one of the first takedowns he was able to get. He goes for a lot of oddball stuff. Now for Guram, he was able to get out of those bad positions by going for a heel hook, going for, an arm bar to then get himself back up to his feet. He's really creative when he gets in those odd spots, and I think that's a lot of credit that you have to give to the team and All-Stars that he trains with. And I know, again, I mentioned it, I've seen so much Guram in the last 2 years training with some fighters in the States, at the PI, at Extreme Couture, at All-Stars, over in Spain. Like, he's been all over the world training with very, very good guys. So it was only a matter of time before you get to see him back in the UFC. Same thing can be said for Ismagulov. You look at it, his second to last fight was 2 years and 8 months ago when he took on Thiago Moises. And then it took about a year and a half before he ended up fighting against Alves, which was almost a full year ago.
The wins age like wine, though, don't they?
They do, and they look really good for Damir Ismagulov. It's just, I wish he fought more often.
And can we honestly put both these guys in that category? Like, these two guys could go down as all-time great what-ifs, if we're being honest. Like, if Guram never gets hurt, beats Gamrot, we all know where Gamrot is right now in the UFC and the whole hierarchy of the lightweight division. Like, this is the best division in arguably the whole entire sport. I don't think that's a wild thing to say at all. And Kutateladze in his UFC debut was able to beat a guy who right now is considered one of the best fighters in this division. And for Ismagulov, has beat a guy who in Moises, who at one point was in the top 15. It's just, it has been these long bouts of inactivity, so it is a shame. Like, if both these guys had sort of a more traditional career where you're fighting every 5 months, every 6 months, and, maybe Kutateladze does have a loss at this point, but the wins have been able to get him more ready for guys in the top 15. It is a shame that we haven't been able to see a more consistent version of both guys' careers.
So an MMA NYTT interview, or piece, I guess, rather, on Guram Kutateladze said that he took his first fight in an unsanctioned bout when he was 9 years old. So the guy's a fucking wild man.
That's
for
hard
Damir
AF.
Ismagulov, again, his wins in the UFC. He fought great competition with M1 Global. That can't be said enough. We can say it again and again and again. He's won, 18 fights in a row. But the first 3 fights, he didn't lose a single round, and there were multiple 10-8 rounds spread out through all of the fights. So we look at the odds here. Damir Ismagulov open to -180 favorite, -170 right now. Guram open to +155, +138 as it stands. We have a look at the fan vote. This is really going to be a surprise to us. It is to you, because people love Guram. I'm going to say over under 55% Ismagulov.
I'll say over.
I'd say over. It is over. 934 total votes. 72% Ismagulov. 88% by decision. For the 28% that have Kutateladze, 79% by decision. Matt, this is a tough one. Who do you have to win?
I came into this fight thinking I was going to pick Guram because, again, if you do look at Mateusz Gamrot and whatever camp would be getting ready for an opponent like that, you're probably having a very similar camp if you're getting ready for a guy like Damir Ismagulov. But this is my issue. I think back to guys and people are either going to roll their eyes, they're going to like it. Some basketball references are on their way. Look at Paul George 2 seasons ago when he had shoulder surgery. Pascal Siakam last year. Klay Thompson. Like, even if you are a world-class athlete, you do need in-game time to kind of readjust and get back to what you used to be. And for Guram, if he isn't 98% of the fighter that he was in the Mateusz Gamrot fight, he might find himself on his back, not being able to scramble as effectively, eating some big damaging shots, because I could see Damir Ismagulov almost having like an Arman Sarukian, Joel Alvarez type performance where he looks so good, he just completely changes everybody's mind about, maybe an unimpressive performance here or there. I think that opportunity is going to be there. I'm very split on this pick, but I am ever so slightly going to side with the favorite. I thought the odds were going to be more pick'em, to be completely honest with you, but I do think Damir Ismagulov is the more complete fighter, and again, I like his ability to fight out of poor positions. His wrestling is such a dominant aspect of his fighting style that even if he is getting dropped by Guram, I think he can have a similar reaction to what Gamrot was, where even though I'm dropped, I'm immediately chain wrestling. I'm going to get into my own actions. I think this is going to be a phenomenal fight. I think this is going to be fight of the night, but I do have Damir at the end of the day, and this hopefully is one of those fights where the winner completely shoots up into like borderline top 15, because that's how good these guys both are.
Matt wants to see like a Yoel Romero or Justine Kish completely sharts right up in the rankings. That was aggressive, Matt. Watch out. We have Damir Ismagulov, a guy who I haven't picked against in the UFC, take on Guram Kutateladze here. And Matt, for Guram, you talk about the knee injury, so on and so forth. That was a time ago. Like, that was quite a while ago that did happen. Then it was the rib injury, long layoff, so on and so forth, and you're not sure what you're going to get. Old man Cub Swanson tore his ACL, came back and knocked a guy out. So
didn't knock out a guy of Damir Ismagulov's caliber, though.
It is an odd one. I like Guram Kutateladze in this fight. I think he has a decided advantage when it comes to the striking. I know with Damir Ismagulov, he went over to Tiger Muay Thai. He's working on his striking, and it's a gym that he's gone to a lot in the past as well. I think Guram has that X factor with the power, which I don't normally side with. I usually go with a guy who has good volume, a guy who has good movement on the feet. Damir's one of those guys that it's not on the balls of his feet all the time, but he does move his feet quite well, and he moves in and out of danger. He will get his hands up nicely, shell up, and so on and so forth. And his wrestling, you might just look at that Alex Georgies fight and go, wow, this guy is a good wrestler. Look at his complete career body of work. It is a huge X factor, and when Damir gets you down,
oh my goodness,
it's hard to get up. And he throws strategic ground and pound. He's not an animal. It's not like Brock Lesnar hammer fist.
Count,
he really does make them count, and he picks a shot. So I'm going to take the underdog in this one. Going with the Georgian Viking in Guram Kutateladze. You have Damir Ismagulov, but listen.
I thought Guram beat Gamrot, to be completely honest. Like, that's how good I think Guram is, but that's also how good I think Damir is. Again, I can't stress this enough. Just because these guys don't have numbers next to their name does not mean that they're not ranked caliber fighters. That really is the whole case in this fight.
High-level fight, and a lot of them to come on this main card. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.